Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I have a couple of thrift flips, some that sat in my closet for a while that was supposed to be flipped a long time ago and I'm barely getting to them, and some I recently bought. So we're gonna get started with this basket that actually came with a lid, and it was like insulated, but I took all of that out, and I'm gonna go ahead and start by giving it a dry brush. So here I'm going to start with the color Mineral from Waverly Chalk Paint. I'm just going to do a quick dry brush over the whole basket, and then I'm going to go over that with the color Ivory from Waverly Chalk Paint. So here with this napkin that I picked up at the Goodwill bins, I'm going to go ahead and start tearing it up into the size right underneath the buckle and the other little piece at the bottom of the basket. Not using any scissors here. I want the distressed edge. Then I'm going to go ahead and use a transfer from the new IOD transfer book called Seed Catalog. I'm going to go ahead and transfer it over onto the napkin. This doesn't take a lot of effort, just using the little tool. It comes off pretty easy. As you see here, I'm going to start putting a little pressure and then lifting up the transfer sheet as I usually do with any other transfer. Then, as I do with any other transfers, I'm going to go ahead and do I think it's called burnishing, with the same transfer sheet, just to make sure that there is no loose pieces and everything is adhered correctly. Then I'm going to go ahead and rip the rest of the napkin, not using any scissors. I just cut a little slit with scissors, and the rest I do freehand, again, because I do like the distressed edge. I went ahead and added some glue to the back of the fabric and went ahead and glued it on to the basket. I don't like how the glue kind of shows through the fabric, so what I do is add some Distress Oxide to the edges, just to age the edges a bit and kind of blend in that glue that's coming through. I'm going to go ahead and add some greenery, and then we'll be all done with this project. Next up is this swan I picked up at the thrift store. It had some fabric that somebody Mod Podged over right here where you see that chippy white. I'm going to go ahead and give it a coat of white paint mixed with some salt wash just to add some texture. My original plan was to leave the beak and the eyes original. But then once I got everything painted up, I didn't like how it looked. It looked a little creepy to me. So once I show my end result, you'll see that I ended up painting everything white. And then I go over this with a coat of antique wax. And I believe it's Snow White from Waverly Chalk Paint. And then the antique wax is also Waverly Chalk Paint. So after 2 coats of white paint, I'm going to go ahead and add some antique wax, working in small sections and then wiping back. Only because if you let the antique wax sit way too long, it gets a little too dark and very blotchy. So just work in small sections. And then looking back here, I guess it doesn't look creepy. I guess it looked good. I guess it was just in the moment I'm like, ooh, I didn't like it, but I don't know. I think it looks kind of good now with the eyes and the beak not painted, but it is what it is. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a dry brush with some white paint. When you do this, just use very little paint on your brush, very little pressure. You're just going to slide your brush right over. It's going to catch all the details, and it's just going to give it a more aged look. I don't know, this is one of my favorite things to do, especially over textured paint and over antique wax. It's just, I really love to do this. Next up is this beautiful swan I picked up at an estate sale. It was in pretty rough shape. Um, there had been other cracks that were repaired, and then it had a hole on like the neck part. I decided I wanted to bring it home and try and fix it up because I really loved it. So here I'm starting with a feather that I made out of the Wings and Feathers IOD mold. I started with resin just for stability so I can have somewhere to adhere the clay onto. Then you will see me do the exact same wing but with clay. I use clay on top just so I can have the ability to blend it in, just so it doesn't just stop at clay and I can go ahead and rub it down. You'll see when I get to that part. And if you ever come across this, which is not an everyday thing that someone will come up to fixing something like this, but I don't necessarily think you need to use something resin. Like anything on the inside that can make it have stability will work. I ended up using this wing because I had it left over from some other crap that I was going to use it on. I ended up not using it, so I figured it was perfect. So I end up using Tite Bond and hot glue, and then I clip it just for a couple minutes to give that glue to dry up. And then I start filling like that thick gap with some clay, just so there's not a huge dip in between the clay mold and the resin mold. So then here I'm going to start blending it downward, just so it won't have like the gap. And then I do end up using a wing on the other side just in case I want to use it on my table. It'll look cohesive on both sides. Then I'm going to go ahead and mix up some color mineral in the Waverly chalk paint with some salt wash. I'm going to go ahead and add some texture just to cover up some of the cracks that it has. I'm going for more like a concrete look. After this dries up a bit, I'm going to go over it with some white, just so I can have that variation of white and gray like concrete. I do want to age it a little bit more, so I haven't sealed it because I'm not completely sure, but I'll show you where I'm at and let me know what you guys think. Next up, I picked up this plastic goose or swan. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm going to give it just a quick update. I'm going to give it a couple coats of gray textured paint, and then I'm just going to stamp it, and then we'll be all done with this one. So I picked up these scones, I think at the Goodwill bins. They were a little plain for me, so I'm going to go ahead and give them a little paint and then maybe add some molds to them. So I'm going to be giving them 2 coats of the Waverly chalk paint in the color Ivory. So for the last coat, I start stippling on the paint. I didn't add any salt wash because this paint was already really thick. It was on its last drop, so I was just using it up. So I'm gonna go ahead and start lining my mold with some baking powder just so it can release the clay easily. Here I'm using the olive crest mold from IOD. So I'm going to go ahead and use some Type Bond and go ahead and get these molds glued down. Then I decide that it's still a little too plain for me because I'm extra. So I go ahead and pull out my IOD mold in the classic elements, I believe. And I'm going to go ahead and make another mold that can sit on top. So same with this mold, I'm going to go ahead and line it with some baking powder just so it can release easy. And then I'm going to turn it over and kind of roll out the mold. So as soon as I get the molds onto my sconce, I'm going to go ahead and give them a coat of paint only because I don't want them to crack, and I have experienced some shrinking if I don't paint right away. So very gently, just if you decide to work with molds, I would highly suggest putting a coat of paint just so it doesn't shrink or you get any cracks. So then I'm going to go ahead and give them a coat of antique Waverly wax, working in small sections and wiping it back. And then just like I always do, give them a white dry brush right over that. Then to bring out the detail even more, I'm going to go ahead and use some of this gilding wax and add some right over the molds, and that's going to make them pop even more. And the last project I have for this video is this wood book stand that I also picked up at the Goodwill bins. I'm going to go ahead and start off by giving it a coat of black paint in the color ink from Waverly chalk paint, and I'm also going to add some salt wash to this. So here I decide I want to add some molds to the ends. Using my IOD mold again in classic elements, I'm going to go ahead and make a mold for both sides. So I know I did jam in a couple projects into this video. Do y'all like watching videos like that, or do y'all prefer more shorter videos with less projects? I'm more of a type where I do like to watch YouTube channels that have a lot of DIYs in one video because I sit and drink coffee or get my morning started. What type of videos do y'all like to watch? Do y'all like longer videos or shorter? So this mold here was a little bit on the larger side, so I had to carefully roll it out so I don't lose any pieces. And if for any reason you give this a try and you do lose pieces, all you gotta do is put it back together once it's on your surface. So here I'm gonna go ahead and add some Tide Bond. I'm gonna go ahead and glue it onto the sides of this wood bookend, and then I'm gonna add some tape and set it aside just for a couple minutes to let the glue dry up a bit. And right after that, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a coat of black, just to prevent any shrinking or cracking. Once that black dries, I'm gonna go in with a coat of this paint. I picked this up at Hobby Lobby. It's like a metallic paint. So my idea was to make this look like it was like iron or metal. I'm not sure if I achieved that look, but I do like it in the end. And that paint is Americana Decor Matte Metallics in the color Charcoal. So bringing y'all in a little bit closer here, because this is where the magic happens, I'm going to go ahead and give this a dry brush with some white ivory Waverly chalk paint. Then going in with this wax from DIY called Shipwrecked, I'm going to go around the mold just to create some patina. Then I'm also going to hit the top with some gilding wax in gold, and I just think that makes the mold pop out even more. And as we come to an end on this video, I want to thank you guys so much for being here. If the music was too loud on some parts, I do apologize. I'm trying to get the hang of this. If you like what you see, please subscribe and follow for more. And I will list all my socials down below in case you want to follow me there. Again, thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.